knew I was.
Hey folks, let's spend some time with some friends up north. I'm Ben Cominos from WHBY in Appleton. Joining us from WCPT in Chicago is Patty Vasquez, and from the Minocqua Brewing Company, here's Kirk Bangstad. We've got the usual suspects from our Substack page with us, as well as a special guest or two. Wherever you are, welcome, you're up north.
Hello, everyone. This is Kirk Bangstad and from the Minocqua Brewing Company. I am back in Madison. This is not really the Up North podcast. We're calling it Office Hours today because we don't have Patty Vasquez or Ben Cominos with us, but we will be getting them back into the fold pretty soon. They will be coming back in the fold pretty soon because my pursuit to run for the governor of the state of Wisconsin has officially ended, and which means that I can start doing radio broadcasts again with journalists who are allowed to now talk to me because I'm not running for office. So there's a silver lining to this issue, and so anyways. So we'll be able to kind of continue with all the things that we're doing. I'm getting texts. Unfortunately, when you run a company, it never ends, even if you're doing a live broadcast. But I'll be able to do a lot more stuff on Substack. We'll be doing office hours, and again with Patty, me, and Ben, and we'll be doing a lot more with our writers. That's the good stuff. Now let's talk about the governor's race. So it's been a heck of a month for the Minocqua Brewing Company. And I think, if anybody's been following what's been going on, it all started when I proposed to my lovely fiance and in Sonoma. And a few hours after I proposed, there was national news that there was an assassination attempt at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Most of the thinking people in America, I believe, were like, "Oh, here we go again. Really, another assassination attempt. Something seems to be amiss. It doesn't seem to be real because it just keeps on happening. They seem staged. Blah 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 blah." So, anyways, I'd had a little bit of wine, and I made a comment that has made it around the world a few times. And I said, either a brother or sister in the resistance needs to work on their marksmanship, or Trump faked another assassination attempt to get a better news cycle for himself. So that started this crazy 2 months, I think, of my life, where that ballooned to a visit by the Secret Service and the FBI, and it completely infuriated me because the FBI and the Secret Service shouldn't be visiting anybody for saying something like that, and the fact that they are made me extremely mad. Part of the reason I believe that they visited me was because the Democratic Party of Wisconsin also kind of piled on and said that kind of language was politically violent, even though it's not. I believe it was completely humorous and satire. And also Francesca Hong, who was the progressive candidate for governor in the race, piled on. And that irritated me a lot because we overlap our opinions on, she's kind of a resistance candidate. And I've been, arguably one of our company has been involved in the resistance movement in Wisconsin since its inception. I would argue that our taproom was the resistance at the beginning, and it's also grown, and we've taken a step back and are doing more writing now than actual boots on the ground. However, it irritated me a lot. I was mad. I was mad at Francesca because I thought it was naive for her to say anything when she could have just been quiet. She could have been an ally. We could have believed in all the same stuff, and she didn't need to jump in. So that's potentially why I thought maybe I've been itching to lead, and I've been criticizing Governor Tony Evers for not leading well enough as a Democrat. I've been criticizing Senator Tammy Baldwin for not being the Democrat we need right now in the Senate. I've been criticizing so many in the House of Representatives for opening up the government again, for allowing ICE to be funded. We had shut down the government to defund ICE, or at least slow them down, and yet the Democratic Party opened government up when we had the upper hand, and there's a slow march towards dictatorship that it seems like we don't have enough people in the Democratic Party and leadership positions in the Democratic Party that are working hard enough to fight that off. That's been my ongoing fear and and what I write about every week. And when Francesca, and she's running for governor, and I had my reservations, and that mistake and piling on led me to think that maybe it was time for me to jump in. So anyways, I jumped into the race, was immediately skewered for being a white male, trying to assert my white male dominance into this race and be the progressive candidate. I was a misogynistic bigot for saying that I had reservations about Francesca's race. That was tough to deal with. I also, at the same time, the Watertown band was not allowed to play by a bigoted school board, and probably should have been focused on the governor's race. But I was like, let's invite these guys to play at our tap room so they could play this song related to the LGBTQ plus community. Anyways, we did that. We raised $85,000 for this band, but at the same time, I couldn't hear enough of it, of how somehow I'm going to steal the money from them, somehow from progressives. From progressives, I think that we're probably still angry that I might be taking votes away from Francesca Hong. I had a lot of it. I got a lot of anger and a lot of mischief on the social media about me potentially raising money so I could abscond with it, as opposed to give it to this band. It was the hardest goodwill deed I think I've ever tried to do, because we raised a ton of money for them. We ultimately had a concert at the Barrymore Theater, but it was hard to pull off. So that left me feeling a little rough around the edges. But anyways, when I announced for governor, I had no campaign staff. I had people that were working for me that hadn't been involved in politics before. And so we cobbled together a pretty ragtag crew of people who didn't really know what they were doing, including me, on how to get a campaign launched. So that ragtag crew, we attempted to get 2,000 signatures. We hired a company out of Milwaukee that that said that they were going to get signatures for us for like $5 a signature. About a week into this process, we had like a month to get signatures. I was like, we should probably use these guys for insurance purposes, because that's a lot of signatures to get when you don't have any like ground game. So we hired these guys, and we gave them a contract to actually get 3,000 signatures. And they said they could do that. And unfortunately, they overpromised and underdelivered. But at the same time, the buck stops with me. I'm managing this whole thing. The people I had in charge weren't checking with this paid group. I think they were a little bit underhanded. I think they never were planning to get the signatures that they said they were going to get. They just wanted to get paid. But unfortunately, my staff, I always say trust and verify. Trust first and verify. And that's what we do with my employees. That's what we do with my company. Like, we trust. We give trust first, but we also verify to make sure things are done. We trusted too much, and we didn't verify enough throughout the course of the 3 weeks we were collecting campaign signatures. So push comes to shove, a week before these things are due, I find out that this group has only got about 900 signatures total, and we've collected about 600 in our efforts that were apart from them. And I was assured earlier in the week that we had already hit 2,000 by my own staff, who were trusting what this fly-by-night group was telling him. And so we didn't verify. We trusted too much. Come to find out, when we actually got the signatures, we were woefully short. So we did an emergency kind of effort over the weekend, and we got another 500, 600 signatures. We turned in like 2,200 signatures, I believe. And I believe all of those signatures were signed by real people who had every intention of signing those papers. However, so many of these signature papers were filled out incorrectly. Many by this group, who is supposed to be a professional group of nomination paper signers in Milwaukee. And so many were filled out incorrectly that like 500 were dinged. And now I even filled out some incorrectly, because I signed my name as the circulator, but I signed the date as the first date that I was circulating the pages, but we were circulating them throughout the course of many days at my tap rooms. I should have signed the date at the end of the period. So even some of mine were rejected. And I've signed affidavits saying, sorry, I did it wrong, but I attest, that I was there circulating these papers, during these times, which so many of our supporters did. Unfortunately, one of the staff of this Milwaukee group simply was too busy to sign the affidavit that we asked her to sign, and she was responsible for about 90 signatures, which is the lion's share of the ones that we needed to get corrected. So she didn't even sign the affidavit, so we just lost 90 signatures in one fell swoop, which was really unfortunate. And then one of my staff, we divided and conquered with affidavits. My lawyer, Fred, couldn't do it all. It's a lot of work. And so I did some of these affidavits, and another staff member did some of these affidavits. And one of those affidavits had another like 60 signatures in them, and that affidavit was filled out wrong. So we got it. Not only did we get the signatures wrong, but we, unfortunately, we got some of the affidavits wrong too. And at the end of the day, I am the president of my company, and I am the boss. And so anything that happens that's incorrect is ultimately my responsibility. So I take responsibility for not getting these affidavits signed. I still believe we had enough signatures, but we didn't get it done the way that needed to get done. And because of that, I fell short, I think, about 200 signatures for getting on the ballot. And I realized that last Monday or Tuesday, or last Sunday or Monday, when my lawyer looked deeply and he was like, Kirk, we didn't even get our affidavits right. So anyways, I'm officially letting go of this battle. And at the end of the day, I think it was a bit of a fever dream to think that I could do anything in a month with a campaign. But I still, I hope to lend my voice to the 5-alarm fire that is our current, what's currently happening in America. And yet again, today, I'm hearing the gubernatorial candidates talk about data centers, and God bless them. We need to worry about data centers. We need to worry about an environment. But just yesterday, the FBI arrested 15 protesters from Minnesota, and these guys were just part of the resistance group that used no violence, and they arrested them for conspiring to injure or hinder federal officers. It's a felony. And if they can do that to protesters, that means they're going to round up everybody who it doesn't toe the line. This is pure fascism that we are living in at the moment. And that's not being talked about on the campaign trail for governor in Wisconsin. And I wish I could have been that voice. But I'm, I still care. I'm still very passionate about it. And so there will be other ways that I can use my voice. We have a very big platform here. So that is what I'm concerned about. But we are off the ballot. And I will be getting back on with Ben Cominos and Patty Vasquez, and we'll be talking all things politics very soon. That's the bit about the governor's race. And then after this short break, I want to talk about my beer being taken from by the Wisconsin Department of Revenue. So join me in a moment for our first ad break, and I'll be back in about 2 minutes. All right, bye.
Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk and Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of the money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of Progressive beer. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells Progressive beer all throughout Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, and online to about 30 states. Never seen it? That's likely because we've been banned by distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy Progressive beer, go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click the Retail Locations tab. That's MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Retail Locations. We get it. Your liver is under constant attack. Alcohol is a dictator that takes away your freedom. It distracts while doing its dirty work. It weakens your judicial system and governing bodies. If you give it too much power, you'll never be the same. We have the solution. 8647 THC hop water. 0 alcohol, 0 calories, tastes like patriotism. 8647 THC hop water. Liberate your liver. Buy 8647 THC Hop Water and Joint Session, our THC Orange Cooler, by going to thc.minocquabrewingcompany.com. That's thc.minocquabrewingcompany.com. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Minocqua Brewing Company, who sells Progressive beer online across the country. If you like the show today, please consider buying one of our beer subscription packages for yourself or a loved one. You can subscribe to the Democrat, the Liberal, and the Progressive, which delivers four packs of beer to your door for 6 months, a year, or 2 years. To find where you can subscribe to get Progressive beer delivered to your door every month, go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. That's MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. The Minocqua Brewing Company is excited to partner with Brouhaha Coffee to create woke coffee. Get woke, go broke. That's what they say, right? Au contraire, mon frère. This gourmet coffee was awarded 2025 Roast of the Year at the Coffee Break Festival in Wisconsin, and it comes in both medium and dark roasts. Support our political action and enjoy fabulous coffee at the same time. For our Up North podcast listeners, go to the MinocquaMarketplace.com, find coffee under the beverage tab, and type in Up North to get 10% off your order. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com and use the promo code UpNorth.
Okay, we are back. I call it the Up North podcast, but there's nobody else here but me, so we'll call it the office hours with Kirk today. Okay, next subject is very important, and the one in which I'm getting all these reporters calling me from around the state of Wisconsin. I don't love mainstream media in Wisconsin, especially in Wisconsin. So, and because we have almost as big as a platform as many of the news organizations in this state, I just give you my news straight when we have it. So yeah, especially, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel has written hit pieces against me that have been fed to them by the Republican Party. The Wisconsin Public Radio has written a hit piece against me that was fed to them by the by the Republican Party. Rob Metzger, he's out of the Wausau office in the Wisconsin Public Radio, and he is no progressive. He is an ambitious reporter who took garbage fed to him by the Republican Party and went with it hook, line, and sinker. And so I don't do interviews with the Journal-Sentinel, nor do I do interviews with the Wisconsin Public Radio. I do interviews with WisPolitics. They seem to be on the up and up, but I don't think anybody reads reads what they have to write. So anyways, here's the news, the update on what's going on with our beer being confiscated by the Wisconsin Department of Revenue. The beer was taken last Thursday. It was a complete bait and switch. So we had a warehouse inspection scheduled. You need to have a permit to hold alcohol in a warehouse. We had scheduled this inspection in January of 2026. They had canceled this inspection twice. It's 5 months later. I absolutely have to have this warehouse to store beer because it's the summer season and the Wisconsin Minocqua Brewing Company is huge. We sell a ton of beer at our tap room in Minocqua in the summer, and I got to store it places. So they delayed this warehouse inspection, and it was obvious they delayed it now because they wanted us to have a warehouse full of beer that they could confiscate. And so because we didn't have any beer in the warehouse or in the wintertime, because we don't sell a lot of beer in the wintertime. We can carry most of that in our tap rooms in up north and down in Madison. So we don't really need a lot of warehouse space in the winter when the sales aren't large. But they waited because they absolutely sure that they were like, well, he's got a warehouse. He needs to use it. And we're going to try to confiscate all that beer when he has a full warehouse. So we were worried about that. So we cleared our warehouse of beer and put it in both of our tap rooms, stuffed it to the gills so that we could have a clean inspection. And so we got a clean inspection, but because they didn't find any beer, they had already planned to raid both my tap rooms. So there was no doubt that they must have been watching. It's kind of a cat and mouse game, I admit, but usually warehouses get inspected in 2 weeks. My lawyer's never heard, and he's a liquor lawyer. He deals with so many of the breweries in the state of Wisconsin. He's never heard of a warehouse inspection taking 5 months. So yes, it was cat and mouse, but why the delay? We should, looking back, we should have sued them for the 5-month delay so that we wouldn't have had to play cat and mouse with beer. Hindsight's 2020. So they raided our tap rooms after they inspected our warehouse, which had nothing to do. So, and they took the beer that we had, and we make our beer in Wisconsin and we make it in Illinois. And I'll tell you the reason again why is we make our beer in Illinois, some of our beer in Illinois, because we can't, we don't have a distributor in Wisconsin. I've been boycotted by all the big distributors in the state of Wisconsin. And because of that, I started selling beer online because I've got a lot of people who want to buy my beer. That was legal during COVID, or else there was a gray area where they relaxed their laws because nobody was leaving their homes. And so beer was being allowed to be sent to people throughout Wisconsin, throughout America, online or in the mail. So we started doing that in Wisconsin. We got a call from the Department of Revenue saying we couldn't do that. So I don't have distributors. It's hard for me to get my beer around in Wisconsin. Now I can't send it to people in Wisconsin online. So, and you can't you can't mail beer to anybody in America if you're mailing it from Wisconsin, but you can mail it to people in Illinois. And we have a ton of people in California who buy my beer, a ton of people in Florida, Texas, New York, all over the country. So, if you're making a lot of beer, or if you're sending a lot of beer, and you have to send it to Illinois, you have to send it from Illinois because it's not legal to do it in Wisconsin. You kind of need to have your beer sitting close to where you're sending it, because moving heavy liquids costs a lot of money, and the beer industry, the margins in the beer industry aren't a lot. No one's getting rich in the beer industry unless you're like Budweiser. But these little guys, we do it because we love it. I absolutely love beer. I love I love the industry. I love the camaraderie of tap rooms. I love the entertainment, the music, all that stuff. I just love it. But you don't get into this industry to get rich. And so every little bit matters. And so making my beer close to where it had to be shipped by law, because you can't mail beer in Wisconsin, made all the business sense ever. And it is very legal to call up another brewery and ask them to make your beer and sign a contract where they make it and it becomes yours. There's many different ways to skin that cat legally, with permits, with contracts, etc. And we did it absolutely legally. We had done similar things with other breweries in Wisconsin. So we were making that beer and sending it out. And in my tap rooms, I want to have all the beer available, not just the stuff made in Wisconsin. So we were selling some of the beer that was made in Wisconsin, some of the beer made in Illinois in my tap rooms. The Wisconsin Department of Revenue said that, now this is a long story, but they said that that in order, they said that I couldn't sell this Illinois company's beer because they didn't recognize it as my beer. They said it was this other company's beer. And that's ultimately a violation of interstate commerce law. And there's a Supreme Court case called Granholm v. Heald that was decided in 2005 that says ultimately that, if you're allowed to do something in one state and you have certain exceptions, like, contracting beer to be made with other brewers, if you're allowed to do that in the state of Wisconsin, you should be allowed to do that across state lines. The only difference of the contract that we were signing was basically latitude and longitude. It was about 3 hours south. So there should be no law that, and the Supreme Court said states cannot make laws that, hinder the same activity being done across state lines. So that's the reason they said, ultimately they said we didn't pay tax, and so we tried to pay tax, but they said I couldn't pay tax because they didn't recognize the beer that we made in Illinois as my beer. They wouldn't allow us to pay tax. And so they said that the beer that I was selling in my tap room, since it hadn't been taxed, it was contraband. And because of that, they took it away. Now, my lawyer in Wisconsin said he's never seen beer be confiscated over an excise tax issue. And my lawyer we just hired in California, who's a nationally recognized liquor lawyer, because the alcohol industry is so big in California. Every industry is big in California, it's just a big state, but the wine industry is so big that, these guys are heavy hitters. And she's like, I've never seen beer be confiscated before. So these guys not only use the wrong argument, or they use what we really believe is an unlawful ding for us. They're interpreting Wisconsin liquor laws improperly. And we honestly believe that. And so that's why we have a hearing. So we filed an emergency restraining order last Friday against the Wisconsin Department of Revenue. And the reason it was an emergency restraining order is we don't know where they took our beer. We don't know. We're positive they didn't take it to a refrigerated space where beer feels most at home. And we're positive that didn't happen. We don't know if they took it into a warehouse that doesn't have temperature regulation at all, and whether or not it goes down to 50 at night and goes up to 80 during the day if the sun's beating in there, which would shorten the shelf life of beer dramatically if that were the case. So I really care about that beer. We go to a lot of effort to make really good beer, and quality is of utmost importance to me. And so when it gets taken, in my opinion, illegally, it at least needs to be taken care of while the legal issues are being worked out. Well, we filed this thing on Friday, and we didn't hear back from the judge until yesterday, and today's went till Tuesday. So we've already lost, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We've already lost 5 days with 5 days of this beer potentially being in the wrong conditions. This guy could have said, well, it would have been hard because we asked them just like, don't even talk to the Department of Revenue. Just give me my beer back while we're sifting through this issue, or at least put it in refrigeration. The judge, apparently Judge Jones in Circuit County, he comes from the Department of Public Instruction. It doesn't seem like he comes from any sort of manufacturing background. So I don't think he understood the timeliness of needing to at least put this in refrigeration while we're working it out. He said, if the Department of Transportation or Department of Revenue screwed up your beer, then they'll have to pay for it, and we'll get to that later. Well, it's really painful, to lose fresh product. It just seems like waste. So anyways, they are allowed before he could have just said, let's put it on refrigerator and then we'll work the rest of the issues out. He didn't do that. He said, we're going to have a hearing between the Department of Revenue and my legal team next Tuesday. And which means that's a whole like week and a half of my beer being in a mysterious place. It's unfortunate. If the beer is in room temperature and the temperature is not vacillating too much, then it'll still be fine. I still think I'm still hoping we can recover that beer and sell it this summer. But the longer that beer is not in a refrigerated place, the less fresh it is, and the less good it will be. So I'm discouraged. Now, the judge could have said, I'm not going to listen to you at all. You have no grounds for a temporary restraining order, and the judge didn't do that. So that is positive. And so we are filing now that it's no longer an emergency. I mean, it was an emergency on Friday. It's still an emergency, but we have until Tuesday. We are refining our complaint against the Department of Revenue and making it really buttoned up so that we can teach this judge about Granholm. I mean, this is a Dane County circuit judge. He's probably never dealt with this Supreme Court case before. He probably assumes that the Wisconsin Department of Revenue is doing things by the letter of the law because they're supposed to. And so the burden will be on us to convince the judge that the Department of Revenue is not doing things by the letter of the law and that we have grounds to stand on. And so it needs to be good. We need to really show our case well. And so I think my lawyers are doing that. So I will have more news about our confiscated beer next Tuesday. Now, the one thing I do want to talk about, though, is that the level of heavy-handedness here is unprecedented. I said both my liquor lawyer in Wisconsin and my liquor lawyer in California said they'd never seen beer seized before. The amount of tax that we're talking about here, that because we paid Illinois tax because we were making our bill in Illinois. My accountant didn't know that he was supposed to pay the tax in Wisconsin, and that's on us. We should know that, but it's an easy fix. We just refile. We file in Illinois and say we overpaid in Illinois. Can we get a rebate? Can we get that money back? And then we file in Wisconsin and say, here's the money that we paid to Illinois. That's the fix, not a hard fix. The fact that all of this happened over the last 5 months when we were trying to tell them, why are you doing this to us? We tried to convince them in all the ways that none of this is legal, nor was it much. They never alluded to the fact they were going to seize my beer throughout all these discussions. They've harassed my vendors. They've harassed a lot of the people I do business with. They're building a case against us, and I think I don't know why. I mean, I know why. I mean, I suspect why, but it shouldn't be this way unless something about my brewing company is different than other brewing companies. I would argue that my brewing company is the most politically active brewery in America. You don't really go into brewing beer and politics at the same time, but I'm unique in that way. And I'm using my brewery to support my political activism, not the other way around. So we have been constantly a thorn in the Republican Party's side over the last 5 years. The Republican Party, the wing of the Republican Party is the Tavern League of Wisconsin. They don't love the fact that wing is owned by big beer distributors in Wisconsin. The Tavern League suggests that they are there for taverns around Wisconsin, but the real might of the Tavern League is the rich distributors who get liquor laws passed that give distributors an unequal amount of power in the three-tiered system. Three-tier system is the producers, which are the winemakers, beer makers, spirit makers. That's the first tier. The second tier is the distributors. The third tier are the bars, the end, or the grocery stores, or wherever the beer is, wherever the alcohol is ultimately sold. That's 3 tiers. Distributors, the middle tier has a huge amount of power in Wisconsin because of the power of the Tavern League. Guess why? Where marijuana is not legal in Wisconsin, but it is in Michigan, Illinois, and Minnesota. The Tavern League of Wisconsin. Guess who doesn't get any profits if marijuana is sold? Liquor distributors. If the amount of alcohol consumption goes down because people are smoking more weed, we all suffer as in the 3-tier industry, but the distributors suffer too, and they are the ones that make sure that we don't have legal marijuana in the state of Wisconsin. They also are the ones that make sure that producers like myself cannot sell beer online in the state of Wisconsin, because that cuts out the distributor. I can sell directly to the consumer. I have a huge social media presence. A lot of hundreds of thousands of people could be watching what I'm talking about right now. I can say, buy my beer. I don't need a distributor to distribute my beer to you. All I need is for you to order it on my website and buy it, and I can send it right to you through my partners in Illinois. Unfortunately, if you're a Wisconsinite, you can't, because they don't allow me to even send it to Wisconsinites from the state of Illinois, even though you can get wine sent to you, because the wine producers in California have a strong lobbying group nationwide. So the liquor laws are really screwed up. They allow, because it's a substance that is addictive, they're allowed to play fast and loose with the power structures and the gatekeepers, and the little guy, the little brewer in Wisconsin, suffers as a result. So one thing that I think is the reason they're going after me so hard is that I believe the distributors have an undue amount of power. And I think that they really don't like it that I've survived without them over the last 5 years. And I think they really don't like the fact that I'm able to circumnavigate the laws. I'm not breaking any laws, but I'm going out of state in order to get beer delivered to people around the country. I don't think they like that. And now this is a little more circumspect, but I'm not going to not talk about it because, the Department of Revenue is run by the Department of Administration, and we have a Democratic governor. In theory, I'm a Democrat, but as I started in this, I said I was running for governor because I wasn't happy with how the Democrats were not leading right now and not being strong enough to protect America and Wisconsin from tyranny, from Trump's regime. So I've been very critical of Governor Evers, very critical of a lot of Democrats in the state of Wisconsin for not fighting hard enough. And I would never think, before my beer was seized last Thursday, I would never believe that a fellow Democrat would use the government to mess with me. Now, I also wouldn't believe that fellow progressives would mess with me, and that happened when I threw my hat in the ring for governor, and a lot of supporters for Francesca Hong just came after our social media pretty hard. So yes, so the ultimate, moral of the story is politics is a rough and tumble business, rough and tumble area, and I'm a rough and tumble guy. I'm okay with that, but I can't believe that the level of heavy-handedness and actually taking my beer from a really small brewery in Wisconsin, that level of heavy-handedness, I just can't believe that somebody didn't have their finger on the scale in the department administration and said, let's get Bangstad. Let's teach him a lesson. I can't believe that. I have to believe that somebody made the call to be extra hardcore with our business. So anyways, we're going to fight this. It's made it in all the papers that I've sued Wisconsin Department of Revenue. I've updated you. The first hearing is going to be on Tuesday. Hopefully we get my beer back. But we are open for business in Madison and Minocqua. And I have to put in a plug for this. This Saturday, I'm going to be up in Minocqua. I'm leaving tomorrow to get from Madison to go up there again. And we're having a pride party to drown out yet another protest, a MAGA protest against our company in Minocqua. They did it a month ago. I saw 12 toothless high school graduates, and it's a little bit strong, but it was a deplorable is probably a better word for it. They weren't America's best and brightest that were protesting us. We got about 100 people there. It was a great party. We had a rally. We drowned them out. It was successful. And when I heard they were going to protest us again, I was like, well, it's Pride Month. Let's have a drag party, or let's have everybody dress in pride gear and hire a few drag performers and have a beer tasting and some music. And so we're going to do that. We're going to do that on Saturday. The party starts at 11. We got a guy named Joe G, who's a great musician, who's going to play for an hour. And then I just talked to 3 drag performers today. From Appleton, Merrill, believe it or not, and Wausau are all going to be joining us. They're going to be dancing a few of their numbers, and we're going to do some beer tasting. We're going to give a free pint to everybody who dresses up in pride outfit. And it's going to be wonderful. And I hope we get so many people, so many of you there, because I don't like it when MAGA wins. I don't like it when they create nastiness, and then my customers have to see that. And so I'd rather have all of us have a wonderful time and drown out some of their negativity. So please come this Saturday. We have plenty of beer. Don't worry. They confiscated a lot of it, but we have plenty more. And please come this Saturday. And I hope to see you in my rainbow onesie that I had to get an extra a 2X. I had a 1X before, and that doesn't quite fit anymore. So I'm going to get a 2X rainbow onesie, and I hope you bring your rainbow onesies as well. Okay, everyone, that is all I got for you today. Thanks for listening, and I hope to see you soon. All right, take care. Bye.
Let me die.